I don't have to tell anybody that these are really crazy times. But in the midst of the pandemic and 130,000 Americans dead, in the midst of the economic meltdown with tens of millions of people losing their jobs and facing eviction and hunger and all the other problems that we're seeing, I hope that we do not lose sight of the existential threat that climate change poses to our entire planet. Some of you may have noticed that last week in Siberia, perhaps the coldest place on Earth, the temperature was 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Icy melting and wildfires raging in Siberia. And that's on top of rising sea levels all over the world, the acidification of the ocean, increased drought, increased flooding, increased weather disturbances, and the understanding that if we do not act boldly and have the courage to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry and to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, if we don't do that, the planet that we're going to be leaving our kids and future generations will be increasingly unhealthy and, in fact, uninhabitable. So in the midst of everything else that's going on, the pandemic, the economic meltdown, the demand to end systemic racism and police brutality, in the midst of all of that, please don't lose sight about the enormous threat that climate change poses to our planet. And this is an issue I'm going to be working on very, very hard in the Senate. Second issue coming up within a few weeks that I wanted just to mention. I have been disturbed for a long time about the kind of cooperation that we see from Democrats and Republicans on an incredibly bloated $740 billion military budget. This is a budget which is higher than the next 11 nations combined. It's a budget for a Pentagon which has never been able to undertake an independent audit. But we do know there are massive cost overruns. There's massive amounts of fraud and waste within the Department of Defense. So I have introduced an amendment which will be on the floor when we get back after the July 4th break in about 2 weeks, which calls for a 10% cut in military spending and then transferring that $74 billion into the 1,000 most distressed communities all over this country. So instead of spending money on nuclear weapons and on missiles and on tanks and guns, what we're going to do is spend that money in the communities in this country that need it most, for education, for healthcare, for infrastructure, and to deal with the needs of the people who are most hard-pressed in this country. And that is the beginning of what I think we have got to do to fundamentally change priorities in America. Look forward to your support on that issue. Thank you all very much. Stay healthy. Take care.